Is the Bible infallible?
Yes.
How can something be infallible that is written by fallible people?
If you apply that to, let's say, physics, how are fallible people able to discover infallible principles? Because something can be true and even fallible people who fall short of truth can discover it. Just because I don't understand everything about math doesn't mean that it makes 2 + 2 = 4 untrue just because I'm the one teaching it to you.
This is what you get when a great question meets an ignorant answer. So the gentleman asked the question, is the Bible infallible when it's written by, and how can it be when it's written by fallible people? He took a wrong turn as soon as he answered the question by trying to compare it to science, trying to compare it to physics. When he made the statement that physics is infallible, well, most physics is infallible, but yet it's discovered by fallible people. The problem is in the word choice that he uses to say discovered. You see, the Bible so-called truths were never discovered. So therefore, you're not even comparing apples to oranges, which are both fruits. You're comparing an apple to a cow, to a steak, something that has no relevance to one another at all. Think with me for a minute. If you discover something, then you are learning about how something is already working, how something is already functioning, and how something has no infallibility about it. 2 + 2 will equal 4, whether we observe it or not. 2 + 2 will equal 4, whether we accept it or not. In no form, shape, or possibility can 2 + 2 equal anything other than 4. Now, you can be an accountant or a lawyer, and you can lie and fudge the numbers to make it be whatever you desire for it to be. But when it comes to the so-called Bible, you're looking at a situation where people claim that they were inspired by an invisible God that they cannot demonstrate nor prove exists. They claim that they were inspired by an invisible God that cannot be measured nor can it be observed. All things in science that are proven to be infallible are things that have been observed, things that have been measured, things that have had peer review and have been found to be infallible. So, living here on earth, if I drop something, it is going to fall. It's not going to rise unless it has a density that is lighter than the density that we are sitting in right now. Now, even if you were to let loose a balloon that had less density with the nitrogen in it or helium, it will rise. I said nitrogen, but I mean helium. Helium, it will rise, but there is a point where it will no longer rise anymore because its density has matched the atmosphere that is in, and ultimately the air will squeeze out and it'll fall. Once the helium is gone, it falls. So we cannot compare people inspired to write a book about a God that there has never been any proof of said God, nor can we be, it can be compared to a God that you cannot observe, one that cannot be measured. So the Bible is completely fallible. Now, what are some of the areas in which the Bible proves that it is completely fallible? Now, one would be the contradictions within the Bible. If we looked at something as simple as the resurrection of the so-called Jesus, then we will see that there are different storylines, that there are different aspects. Who came to the tomb? Was it Mary? Was it Mary and Salome? Was it Mary and the other Mary and the other women? Who got there after they went and told? Was it just Peter, or was it Peter and a young man outran Peter? How many angels were there and where were they positioned? Were they inside the tomb, outside the tomb, on a rock, sitting at the head, sitting at the feet? Where were they? Different stories on different accounts. Was there an earthquake? According to Matthew, there was an earthquake and there was there's an eclipse. And then the other one talks about an eclipse-like event, but there was an earthquake. How did the others miss an earthquake? It's one thing to say, oh, well, he was sitting on the right side or the left side, and maybe your perspective is a little bit different. But an earthquake, occurring in an area, enough to move a rock, a boulder, is infallible. But yet nobody else mentions this. Nobody else noticed this event happening. Infallible would mean that the stories of the Exodus would be proven to be true, but yet there is absolutely zero evidence that demonstrates the Exodus ever happened. That the people who call themselves Israelites didn't even exist in Egypt during that time frame. It is not until we get to the Meneptah Stele where we find that all of a sudden there are these Israelite people in and around 1210, 1204 that were utterly destroyed as a people, not a nation, not a city, but as a wandering nomadic people in Canaan. Beyond that, there is absolutely zero mentioning of an Israelite being in Egypt at any time. So when they say that the Bible is not infallible, then the Bible would not have contradictions in it. Was Jesus born in 6 BC when the census was done in Judea under Quirinius? Or was he born in 6 BCE when Herod was still king, because Herod died by 4 BCE? According to the story, Herod was alive even during the time frame that this so-called census was being done, according to most Bible believers and how they tell the story. But they're mixing two different stories. It just talks about a census in 6, but Herod had died in 4. So therefore, when was this Jesus born? According to Luke, Jesus went after his 8th day of being born, went to the temple in Jerusalem, got his circumcision. They paid the sin of being born of 2 pigeons, and then they went back to Nazareth, went back to Galilee. And every year they came back to Jerusalem for Passover. But according to the Matthew story, when Jesus was born, they never went to the temple. They never paid their sin tax. They went down to Egypt. And they remained in Egypt until Jesus started preaching and teaching. Nothing else mentioned about his entire childhood. These two stories are incompatible. It would be one thing if Matthew didn't have the Egypt part in it. You could just say that Matthew left that part out. But he didn't. He said they went to Egypt. But Luke said that they was going back and forth from Jerusalem to Galilee until he was 12 years old is the next mentioning of him. Those are infallibilities within the Bible. They simply do not work. And we don't even want to get into the science of the Bible and how it teaches. In one hand, you have certain prophets who are saying that the earth is a sphere. On the other hand, you got God himself in Job letting you know that no, the earth sits on foundations. That there's a firmament, according to Genesis, a dome over the earth. You don't have a dome over a sphere. You don't have foundations holding up a sphere. You don't have edges of the earth, and you don't have what you see in the trial of Jesus by the so-called devil, that he can go up to the tall mountain and see all the nations of the land, maybe a region, but not a whole land. And there is no mountain in all of Israel where you can stand on top of that mountain and you can see Egypt. Not a one. And they knew that Egypt existed at that time frame. There is no mountain in Israel that you can stand on and you can see modern day Turkey, because Turkey existed to those people at that time frame. There was no mountain you could stand on in all of Israel and see Rome. They knew that Rome existed in that time frame. In order for that to happen, one, the mountain would have to be so incredibly high that Jesus wouldn't be able to breathe, that it would be ice cold freezing, higher than Everest. You'd be into the lower to upper atmosphere of the earth, even on a flat surface, to be able to see just Rome. But yet that's not how this story is told. So the infallibility of the Bible is plentiful. I could go on for hours about how the infallibility of the Bible is there. And it's mainly because it's written by 40 different people over 15 to 2,000 years of time frame, or just 1,500 years to 1,200 time frame. It is completely fallible because it's a made up religion by fallible people. So y'all have a great day, and always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable.